I need to stay in a specific area?
No, you do it.
I'm a walker, so we'll get walking. Do want to thank Todd for the invite to come today, and thank you all for letting me be part of your meeting today. When I had started as director in 2011, and I started kind of meeting with PBD staff about some things we needed to improve on and do better, and kind of our self-evaluation, one thing that kept coming up was our staff thought we needed to do a better job of communicating with organizations outside of PBD, getting involved in appraisal organizations again, meeting with the appraisers associations again. So we've made that effort, and these meetings like this, I think, go a long ways in helping us. I don't know if today will be beneficial to you, but it's always beneficial to me to meet with the smaller groups and kind of hear what's going on in your areas. As I say, we have been making an effort to get out more probably than we did 2, 3, 4 years ago. I think everybody was wrapped up in Orion, and we really didn't have time to do much else, is what I was told. But we are being more active. Myself and several others have joined the IAAO chapter in Kansas City. As Todd said, this is the first time I've had a chance to come down here and meet with you all, so I appreciate that. We have renewed our directors' updates, and we're trying to hold those a couple times a year. We're getting out with, we were at the Commissioners' Conference last year, met with county commissioners. We've been meeting with registered deeds, clerks. So we're trying to get out more and just communicate better with staff. You know, I don't really want to go out, take time to go around the room introduction, but I learned the hard way to kind of know who my crowd is before I talk very long, so I can don't have to remove my foot from my mouth too many times. Is everybody here associated with the county appraiser's office? Is anybody not? Okay. Most from Sedgwick? Who else is representing other counties?
I'll agree with
Okay. Just a little bit of my background for those of you that don't know me. I started in this field in 1989. I worked the Shawnee County Appraiser's Office from 1989 to about 2003. So I started as a data collector in '89 for Shawnee County, and kind of worked up from there. So far on the real estate side, I've been involved in, at least for a short time, about every phase, I think. I left in 2004 and went to work for a private appraisal company for a few years. My plan was I was going to add the general certification, was trying to get some experience hours to do that, and it turned out the fee world wasn't for me, and so I went back and got a job at PBD in 2007 and worked about 2 months on the CAMA section before Mark Beck asked me if I'd be interested in being an administrator over the state assessed section. Actually, from where I am today, that was a great move, because it kind of gave me a little insight on what the state appraised section does, and I know working from the county, you don't know that from the county side, so it was beneficial to me. And then, unfortunately, the circumstances with Mark, I took over for an interim position in 2011 when he went in for some procedures, and what happened after that was appointed and then approved by the Senate last January as full-time director. So I say all that because I want you to know I can kind of relate to your duties in the counties and county appraisers. And I say that because I want you to know what we're doing, things we do at PBD isn't intentionally made. We're not doing them just to intentionally make your life miserable. It's just playing out that way. But I can relate to your jobs, and that benefits me at times, I think. What Todd asked me to do today was just give kind of a brief overview of the structure of the Department of Revenue, which PBD is part of, and then a little bit about the organization of PBD, how we operate, what some of our duties are, how we're funded, that kind of thing. Then he asked me just to give a little bit of an update on our update at the director's update last June at KCAA, so I'll do that. I don't see the clock, so I don't know where I'll be at time, so if you need to shut me off at some time, please do. So I'm going through there. I think we'll have plenty of time for questions, but if I hit a topic you want to talk about a little more, stop me as we're going on it, and be happy to discuss that with you. It's said PBD is one of 6 divisions under the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue is headed by Secretary Dick Jordan. He took his job as secretary just shortly before I did as director, so we've been kind of learning together on the job. I really enjoyed working for him. Got that on tape, right? Very good guy. But I have. His some background, he was a legislator from Johnson County. My understanding of talking to him originally when the cabinet was being put together, he thought he was going to be Secretary of Commerce, but the way things panned out, he ended up being Secretary of Revenue, kind of a last-minute change. He will admit to you that property valuation, property tax is not an area he has a lot of experience in, so he's been very good in working with us and consulting us on property valuation, property tax issues, and has expressed a genuine interest in getting both sides of every story. So I have enjoyed working with him and do enjoy working for him. Just real quick with the other divisions in Department of Revenue, policy and research, I just mentioned Richard Cramp's name, because if you ever have somebody in your county that needs some information on legislative issues, policy, budgets, I'd start with Richard's division. He can probably help you more than any. Alcohol beverage control, I've never quite grasped why that was under Department of Revenue, I guess because of the fees and all they collect. After going to some of the conferences, I'm thinking he's probably a good guy to know. Tax operations is another division. Steve Stotts runs that. If anybody needs help, it's just with sales tax, income tax, all the state taxes outside the locally administrative taxes. Audit services, they do audits for any division. It's my understanding we could contract or work with them to do an audit if we needed to, send a public utility company or something along that lines and files with the state. But to date, I don't know of any time we've ever used them. There is a legal division at KDOR. It's headed by David Klossman. I have Bill Waters' name here. For some reason, PVD is the only division that has an attorney assigned just to us. So then that's good. If y'all don't know Bill Waters and they're not using him as a resource, you should. He's actually under the legal division, but works full-time just on property tax and with PVD. So, in fact, Bill was one of the guys when I was offered the job. He's one of the first people I went to ask him what he thought about me being director and if he would stick around if I was appointed director, because I didn't want to. I wanted him there because he's a great resource. So use Bill as much as you can. The others vehicles, I just mentioned that because we do work very closely with them. Donna Sheelight highlighted Deanne Williams' names for motor carriers. I think as most of you know, our state assessed motor carrier property tax this year, so last year we're administering that, and it's being replaced with a registration fee. We've had Deanne at a couple of our meetings. I might try to bring her back again here next month when the KAC's down here. But if your counties have questions on that new commercial vehicle registration fee, contact Deanne Williams at the state. For PVD, most all our duties are pretty well lined out in the statute. And I won't read all of them to you, but I did want to kind of hit on a few. 55, 5105, 55108 talks a little bit about the valuation side, about the guides, about rendering all assistance possible toward uniform assessments, and about assisting county appraisers with specialized technical skill. I think reference would probably specialized special use properties, that type of thing. 1402 basically talks about the director's general oversight authority over the entire system. 1404, if you're interested to go read sometime, is where most of my duties are lined out in the statute. As with a lot of the property appraisal statutes, a lot of them were updated between 1988 and 1992 with the reappraisal. Some of them still, you can tell, were directed specifically towards that statewide reappraisal. And a lot of them could probably use some tweaking to be more in line with what we do today. A few of these I'll highlight. One again is talking about the general supervision over the administration of the assessment tax on the state. 10th is talking about examining cases where there's violation of the laws of assessment. I mention this because we get calls quite a bit from taxpayers in different counties with concerns about the value. We make it clear to them the difference of opinion on a value is not a violation of the law. Nothing we're going to get involved in. We advise them of the appeal process and go on. 17th, I mentioned, talks about the PVD director extending deadlines. I mentioned this because this is a topic we've kind of hit on the last couple of years. I think it was 2 years ago we got drilled a little bit. I think about 75% or so of the counties failed to mail or requested extensions on the mailing of CVMs. Didn't meet the March 1 date. Because in every county in this room probably didn't meet the March 1 date. The rest of them didn't. Anyway, it came up and we got hit on it a little bit. So last year we did put some renewed emphasis on this. Now through Orion, all 105 counties are up and going. I think everybody's getting through the process in a more timely manner. And we didn't end up denying any extension requests this year, but we did kind of put in place a process where if you ask for an extension, we'll have our team lead for the field staff go down and visit, just see what's going on, if there's anything that we can do to help, what steps should be taken maybe to meet it next year. But again, we didn't deny the extensions, but it is kind of a focal point of us and some other people who kind of keep an eye on the evaluation system.
Can I ask you a quick question on it, then?
Sure.
With the reappointment of appraisers this year, you have more counties now than ever that have either contracted or part-time appraisers. And most of them have more than one county. So from a logistical standpoint, it's not physically going to be possible to have all 3 of your counties or 4 of your counties, however you have, all out by March 1, because you just can't be in all places at the same time. Is that going to be given consideration?
Given consideration, that's the first time I've heard that, because I don't know if I agree that's a valid reason. I think you probably shouldn't take on more counties than you can perform under and meet the statutory requirements of your
Part of the
job.
issue is the lack of individuals willing to go to it. I mean, so these, as you know, you still have quite a few counties that don't even have an appraiser.
It's dwindling, but we have a few. You know, Rick, it's hardest thing I've had in setting policies is throwing a blanket policy over the whole state. I mean, everything I think is individual. Yeah, be taken into consideration.
Okay.
I think if the county's fully, if you're short-staffed, you've done all you can to become adequately staffed, and it just doesn't happen. I mean, it's about reason. So yeah, we'll take that into consideration. Just taking on more counties and you're fully staffed and you just took on more than you can handle might not be a valid reason. My thought. Big role we have is just a general supervision. I just got to highlight a couple things. Our general supervision does. Part of it's just the valuation side, the county, taxpayer assistance, compliance review, preparations of guides, forms, CAMA system, our continuing ed, our designation program. One thing this slide came off when we talked to the county commissioners, one thing that kind of gets overlooked, our role, property valuation division is more, it's outside just property valuation. I mean, it's the property tax system. So we also work very closely with the register of deeds, work with them on the sales validation questionnaires, title work. Clerks, we have a 2-person team that works with the clerks year-round. Vicki Ignas and Peggy Heward on our abstract team. Treasurers, obviously we work with them on the vehicles and the personal property issues. And also a big responsibility of ours is working with the legislature, legislative research, the revisor's office, working with them as far as tax policy. General oversight, as I kind of hit on, is not typically involvement with individual property disputes. Again, this was a slide I used with the county commissioners. If you take 1.7 million parcels in the state and our staff of about 49, which is dwindling by the day, it's just not feasible. So that's not part of our general oversight. One thing I do want to talk about with you guys is, as you see our statutory duties, on one side we're county assistants, on the other side we're county compliance. And this is probably one topic that I've struggled with the most, is how to balance that. You know, one day we're walking into your county with our assistant's hat on and saying, hey, here you need help with market modeling or depreciation or whatever. Leave. The next day we're coming back in with our compliance hat on and saying you didn't do it right or something. You know, it's a juggling act, and it's something I'm struggling with. We met with, it's a couple weeks ago. I had a phone conference with several county appraisers, and I think it was the counties that have refineries and the cement manufacturing plants and that type of thing. And I asked one of the appraisers, well, you know, what think you saw PBD's role in this to be, and he was honest. He gave me an honest answer. He said, well, I can't remember exactly. It's something about, well, you know, I think our preference would be that PBD just sit quietly in the corner and we'll holler at you when we need you. So, that's probably a lot of people's opinions, but it was an honest answer, but I just hit the statute just to let you know we have other people watching what's going on besides the county appraiser's office. Very much have to work with you, want to work with you, and that's part of our goal of getting out and meeting with you in different places, but compliance is also a big part of it. The biggest issue since I've been director has been the last 2 years at the legislature when the proposed language to change the definition of real and personal properties popped up. And we've sat in front of several legislative committees and pretty well got ripped on the general oversight part of what we're doing. So it seems like we're putting more emphasis on it. We probably are, but there's valid reasons. And just want to make you aware that is one of our duties and something we have to address. PBD staff, I think you most know all these people, just kind of outline our organization. When I was appointed director, one of the first things I did was ask Roger Ham to be deputy director. Those of you who haven't worked with Roger, those of you who have know he's a great resource. I probably asked him more for our differences than for our similarities. Roger's from an ag background, he's worked a lot in personal property. I was born and raised in Topeka and lived my whole life in Topeka, worked on the real estate side, so I think we balance each other out pretty well, plus I have an awful lot of respect for what he does in the opinion. But Roger directly oversees the abstract section, the personal property group, ag use, special projects, and he will tell you he's the can-do guy, so if you need something done, just start with Roger. Oil and gas, like y'all know, Lynn Kent does that. We have finally found her some help. She's done it by herself for as long as I know. We have a young man that's moving over to help her. He's kind of a techie. Dustin Barnes is going to be helping her with research, putting guides together, and so hopefully that can get out quicker and we can start doing some more of the research some counties are asking us to do. So I think that will take a little bit of a load off of her. CAM, I think y'all know the CAM section, Jim Shantz and Heidi and Ray and Mike Hoffman, and everybody's worked with them. Heard nothing but good about them. Great group. Public utilities, again, until I worked over there for a couple of years, kind of more as an administrator than an appraiser, I had very little about what public utilities do. When I came over last year, I asked Kevin to put together a little workshop. Has anybody ever attended that? Okay. Does it work well? Okay. So I'd let your commissioners, let your clerks know about that. It's just a little half day kind of explaining how they value property, how property gets allocated to the taxing units, just what the public utility side of it is. Railroads, public utilities. So spread the word. They weren't real excited about putting together the workshop, but they did, and I'd get people signed up and go with questions, but it is a good time, or good use of time. Ag use, Sean Ozo. County assistants, still Bob and Anna. Education, Maryland. Racial studies, Pete. But if you have specific questions, go to Nancy. GIS, Melissa Crane can help you. Register deeds. Motor carriers, I mentioned we're kind of phasing that out. Our last few people in motor carriers are being moved down to the division of vehicles, so that's going away for us. For our funding, just real briefly on PBD. One thing that's been constant is our budget. Our general budget outside salaries has stayed the same for far back as I've looked. It hasn't changed. Most of our funding does come out of the state general fund. Our PBD is unique, and we have a couple other resources of funding. One is special training. It's a self-funding that we fund all our education program courses, RMA designation. And the way that's set up, for those that don't know, is we enter into a 2-year contract. I think it expires in next year with KCAA, and I don't know how long it's been in place. But basically, we do split all our fees we get from education with the Kansas County Appraisers Association after expenses are taken out. Up till 2 years ago, we were splitting the money before expenses were taken out, and so then we were having to pay for our travel and for our instructors. So I didn't think that was fair, and KCAA agreed, so now we pay for all instructors and then split the fees, so that does help your association as well. Mentioned the IWL courses and the PVD courses. If it's up to us, our goal would be just to offer PVD courses and have organizations such as yours offer and sponsor the IWL courses, and that's kind of our hope. I think we offer maybe one of the three main ones once a year, and that's it. And the rest, I think, chapters do a good job covering those. We also have a reimbursement fund. And we collect this money, but I don't know where it goes. We've never been able to spend any of this money. This is when we send out when a county needs a part-time county appraiser or an interim county appraiser while they're searching for a full-time replacement. Currently, there's only 3 counties, I think, with vacancies in the state. I believe it's Saline.
Celine has one.
Saline has one. Marion County, and I think Rush and Hodgman. Though I hear Rush and Hodgman are close to reach this one. So it's kind of panned out. So that's what I'm hearing. But probably Kim Lauper, I heard, took the Cherokee County job. She emailed me yesterday, so she started down in Cherokee. I believe Monday. Saline hired Sherry, and I can't think of her last name. She was on staff there. So Saline's been hired. I think heard Sedgwick lost one of your members to Montgomery County. So they're falling into place. But anyway, if the county for some reason unexpectedly loses her appraiser, like Mary Check and Thomas passed away last year, we'll go out and serve as acting appraiser. We did 3 counties in 2012, 2013. We're reimbursed for our actual costs only. I mentioned this legislation because we don't want to be in the job of being county appraiser. We tried to did introduce a bill last year that would have allowed the county commissioners to appoint an interim appraiser for up to 6 months. Right now, the statute states they have to be appointed for 4-year terms. No objection to the bill, other than it just got lost in the shuffle and lost in the House of Tax Committee somewhere. We'll reintroduce that this year. The only change this year is the line was struck in here. Currently, it says an appraiser should be appointed for a 4-year term and until a successor is appointed. And we got some calls around this summer from counties who did not want to intend to rehire their appraiser, but did not have somebody appointed. And they're asking us what happens if that old appraiser shows up on July 1 and July 2nd, July 3rd, just keep coming to work because we haven't appointed a successor. So it could be problematic, so we're going to try to strike that. I'm not sure what the purpose was of having this. Anybody, Mark? Yeah.
What about like Gene Bryant? Did he ever get appointed?
No, and I think that's where somebody's jumped through the loophole that they had him. They signed a contract 20 years ago, in the next 4-year term, they didn't have a replacement. So technically by this, they're probably still all right because they haven't appointed a successor. But that's not the intent. I'm guessing it goes back to the original reappraisal, maybe when county appraisers people were struggling to find them once they got, I don't know. But anyway, we're going to try to strike that, and we ran it by KCAA, by your legislative group. They agreed it's probably a good idea. The other funding that's still out there is the FIPS CAMA fund, which does do a lot of our salaries for our CAMA side. We also have an electronic fee fund, which is open. It's similar to your open records fund. You can click on open records. Ours is different though because our fee is not set. We can recoup costs of equipment, software, in addition just to time and paper. So we have a lot more flexibility. We're using this to fund the open records for Kansas Appraiser, the ORCA mapping system, as well as trying to fund and trying to get off the ground a statewide database. You might want to get your tissues out now because this is going to get really sad. Our current picture of PVD, I'll try not to bring you to tears. It's probably a very similar picture to what a lot of you are facing at the county. We're being asked to do more with less. Our staff is down to 47 people. Just since I started, we're down 8 people, 4 of them to our field staff. We're losing staff to you guys. When I used to work in the county, I remember PVD, Robin, a lot of counties, or several counties of staff. There's probably 4 or 5 people at PVD now that I worked with when I was in Shawnee County. That left the county, go to the state for better pay and for whatever reasons. But It's the other way now. I think Ray Cook, those of you who knew him for PVD, recently took the Best County Appraiser job. Shirley Solner, who was our field staff, and Sherman Wallace, and rumor has it we may lose another one here within the next day or two for another county appraiser position. So our staff's dwindling. On top of that, our staff is old. When I talk to them, I can't take that off. When I talk to them, I say we have a veteran staff. I'll be more honest out here. We are old, and it's scary, but the next 2 years, we could be in serious trouble. We're talking to people and talking about retirement plans, and probably within 2 to 3 years, Pete Davis, Nancy Tomlin, there goes our racial study, Bill Waters. Even though I think I keep him talking into coming back, he just likes working. Marilyn's getting closer where she thinks she wants to retire. On our public utility side, Roger Dowling, who's done the railroads forever, and there's no way we could replace him with anybody close to his expertise. So, Vicki and our abstract team, just a couple on field staff. So, we have a veteran staff, not an old staff, but they're getting near retirement, and so we're facing that too. Part of it, I don't know about counties, part of what we're doing is just having to go more and more looking at temps and contracts, been talking to Nancy, Pete, and some of them about it, and Roger, if they'd be interested maybe in working on a contract basis or coming back part-time and trying to help us train new people. But that's what we're faced with, and I think probably a similar story to what you guys are faced with. Before I leave our little PVD overview, I do want to just point out to you these websites is improving our communication. Part of that, what we're working on is trying to improve what we have out on the website. If you haven't been out there, there's a couple spots I'll point to you. County statistics, there's a place out there under the abstract section. We pulled this up for the county commissioners, and if you go to the map, there's by county. You click on your county, it pulls up kind of how the revenues or the assessments are allocated between different classes, what percentage is residential, what's commercial. Just a nice little simple to follow chart that the county commissioners really like. Might be something you might want to share with them. The conference material, we started a folder out there for like our director's updates, any presentation, any handouts or PowerPoints or anything from those presentations. We're sticking them out there in the website, so you can go grab them if you weren't at the conference. Education, we've always had out there. The court cases, I'm trying to get this updated. We need just a link to relevant court cases. We're trying to get that updated to where you can go out and click the search, because Code has told us for quite a while they're getting the search engine in on their dockets, but it's not happening too quickly, so we're going to move this way. Public utilities, I mentioned that. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the past couple of years we've worked with DASC out of Lawrence of setting up a statewide tax unit map through the GIS system. And if you talk to some of your utility companies or people that are looking into projects that cross county borders, we have a statewide tax unit map out there now that they can go out and pull into their GIS system, overlay it, and it works pretty slick. So it's a nice tool. Public utility companies really like that. And the website down, the links there. The other part I was going to talk a little bit about today was just what we have going on as far as updates, and a lot of these things we hit on at the director's update. First up is we are tweaking a little bit our requirements for RMAs, the Registered Master Appraiser designation. Is there any RMAs here that have that? Okay. Anybody working on it? Okay. Nope, nobody? Okay. I was going to say, we are, one of the problems we face is those that are close and working on it, and all of a sudden we're changing the standards to try to how to work with them so they don't have to adhere to the new policy that they can apply under the old. So if you are working on it and have some concerns on the new designation requirements, talk to us and we'll probably try to work with you.
What are they, David?
What are they? I'll get you in a second. Being the RMA requirements are set in state regulation, we do have to hold an open hearing. They were published in the Kansas Register, and we're going to hold an open hearing. It's 1 p.m. on November 18th at our office. The last one we tried to make available by phone too, if anybody's interested in calling in. If we do that, we'll get out of the number for it. Basically, our requirements, just go through them, what I have highlighted. The earner requirement, it's gone from 180 to 200 hours. These are the required courses, and these, I think, are where your organization offers these classes and assistance to us and in these. The change is we're now requiring IWO course 400. So I don't know if that's on your guys' calendar to teach, but there probably will be a little more added interest in it now because it's planned to be a requirement now for the RMA, and we just thought it made sense for that to be a requirement for the registered master appraiser designation. So the total mandatory course hours come up from 140 to 170. This last bullet is one of the reasons we started revising this. It used to be that this course had to be offered by an appraisal sponsor, the appraisal foundation, which used to mean the appraisal institute. They're no longer an appraisal sponsor of the foundation, so their courses weren't automatically qualified. There was talk, and I don't know where it's going now, about IAAO dropping out as a sponsor. So if they do, we're still covered on our courses. That's kind of why the change in the wording there. Continuing ed really hasn't changed. I will highlight this. There has been some confusion on the third bullet, 21 of the 60 tested hours may be online courses. People have taken that to mean only 21 of the total 120 can be online, and it's not. It's 21 of the 60 tested hours can be online. All of these remaining hours can be similar hours or online courses. So only 21. So it's just referring to the tested hours. Does that make sense? Okay. We just changed the name on IAAO. There was some confusion in the past, and people took the wrong IAAO course. So we updated the language. We're designing a new class, Standards and Mass Appraisal, which kind of be a use map, kind of be a compliance workshop, kind of just directed for Kansas, not a nationwide use map. I honestly, the use map update, a lot of it probably is not as beneficial to mass appraisers in Kansas as it could be, so we're trying to design a class that will hit just for Kansas appraisers. One kind of issue I always take is I hear people comparing professional appraisals to mass appraisals to county appraisals. I'm guessing if you've done hearings, you've had people come in and tell you, bring their fee appraisal in and say, I had a professional appraisal do this, how can you question it? And you know, am I the only one that's heard that?
No.
Sure you've heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And last year at the legislature, there was a bill introduced that, can't remember the exact wording, it's something along the lines that if a taxpayer would bring in a private appraisal on the property in an appeal, the county basically had to use it without some outstanding reasoning not to use it, and if you didn't use it and went on further, the county may be liable for the fees and the filing fees and all that. And while we're sitting there in that testimony, the description of the person who introduces the bill will say, you know, it just makes sense. Why wouldn't you, if you have a professional appraisal over here brought into a county appraiser, why wouldn't that county appraiser just automatically take that professional appraisal? So we've been trying to educate about the standards we have. Kansas standards for county appraisers, people I talk to, if they're not the highest, they're one of the highest standards for any mass appraiser in the United States. I mean, our requirements are tough, and intentionally so is my understanding. The RMA requirements were originally set, I think it was a joint effort between PVD and KCAA to come up with those, and they were to kind of follow what the general license requirements were for the Kansas Real Estate Appraisal Board, as well as the designation of IAAO. So our standards are high. But after that session last year in the legislature, I kind of put together a little chart that I shared with some of them. When you compare our licensing requirements for Mass Kansas County Appraiser versus KREAB, when I did this, I don't think it's changed. For us, we required about 3 years of experience, 6,000 hours versus 3,000 hours for KREAB. Our continuing ed is 120 every 4 years. Theirs is 28 every 2 years. We require the case studies. College degree is something a A lot of them are going to, we have not. I know there were, if any of you are privy to the rumor, there was a rumor flying around a little bit that one of our changes in our RMA requirements was going to be a college degree. That was never in our proposal. We've had that suggested to us, and I think, my understanding, that'll probably be recommended by some in our open hearing next month, but that's not in our revisions. And, wasn't proposed by us, but some are in favor of that. But at this time, it's not in our draft. So anyway, you know, when you put our qualifications side by side for what KRE requires, we stack up very well, if not stricter requirements. Our other projects we got going, as I mentioned, the biggest hot button I've had is the real versus property, real versus personal discussion dealing with machinery and equipment in some of the complex manufacturing facilities across the state. Came up in 2012, and they pushed it to the legislative post-audit group to conduct an audit of the valuation of these facilities. And they published that in February. And a lot of the report, I think didn't they visit something here, Mike? They came here, right? Didn't they? Post-audit group? Yeah. Okay, they were here, Anderson County. I think where else we went. But, basically, they hit on a couple things about county appraisers and what they're doing. They identified a number of problems, how they classify. They identified several problems, how they value. The problems they had, and I think a lot of it was with the facility in Anderson, was just there wasn't documentation to support some of the values, especially in some of the miscellaneous value fields. They really hit on that. The scope of the report really hit more on us, and it goes back, and that's kind of why I shared some of those statutes on our oversight responsibilities and those kind of things, because they hit on those pretty heavily in the report. It stated we don't provide sufficient oversight and guidance for appraising complex manufacturing plants. You know, what could we say? We couldn't argue with them too much. We haven't.
How are you going to provide guidance and oversight unless you have someone who's specialized in that? I mean, that to me is not never mind.
I understand what you're saying.
Never mind. I don't understand how they think you can do any better than what, no offense to you, but what the counties can do with what we have available as opposed to what you have available in terms of expertise.
Yeah, and I don't think it was that as much as the consistency from county to county to county, the classification. I think it was all more of a classification issue than valuation issue. I never heard a lot of concerns about the valuation
thing again. All right.
Yeah, I think that's more what I heard. And they didn't come down to value. It came down to how they were classified. Talk about our guidance documents and directives are outdated or confusing, and we had some outdated ones. You look at our feedlot guide, our grain elevator guide, some of these things we're already looking at updating before this came out, but they mentioned it, not providing any guidance regarding complex manufacturing plants. And then talk a little bit about monitoring. This was all directly out of the legislative post-audit report, which is on our website for any of you interested in reading. What this went hand in hand with, some of them picked up on, there was also a 2005 legislative post-audit report that kind of hit on the same things, and some people that had been around for a few years picked up that some of these items in this new report were linked back in this 05 report, and we really haven't made much progress in addressing it. So in that report, they're really talking about the documentation for supporting values, the guidelines, the review process. So between those two reports, we've taken some heat, or had a lot of questions at us about our oversight duties and what we're doing, and that has prompted us to try to do a few things. Our initial, we had to go to the legislative post-audit committee in front of the legislature and just talk about what we've done and what we were doing. One of the main things we wanted to do, and they wanted to see us have done before this year, is to update our personal property guide, where it talks about machinery and equipment, personal versus real. So we're working on that. Some of the things we're looking at to be included in that update is the Montgomery County case. I think everybody's familiar with it. Kind of triggered all this was Coffeyville Resources fertilizer plant. A lot of the property that historically had been classified as personal When they hired an outside appraisal company to come in, they reclassified it as real. A lot of the things that have been listed on their IRB applications as personal. When the new valuation came out, they were real. They went to CODA. Basically, CODA upheld the county's value and classification. They then went to the Court of Appeals, and I went down and listened to that June 11th, and it was very interesting to hear the arguments there. But they just recently ruled that decision, and the copy's probably been around. Everybody's seen the copy of the order.
Is that out on the web?
I don't know if it's on our website. I sent it on to, I can send it to you.
Okay.
It's not on our website. But, basically, the Court of Appeals upheld CODA. A couple major things which I thought were important. They affirmed that the three-part test, fixture test, for annexation, adaptation, and intent is what you look at when you're determining whether your own personal is the correct test, which is what we've always stated in our guides. They upheld that. They said there wasn't a uniformity issue. They talked about this one piece of equipment, depending on how it's attached, what the intent is, how it's adapted to the land and to the real property. You could look at it in a Montgomery County facility, and it could be, you could correctly call it real property. You could go look at a Ford County facility, and you could correctly call it personal just by looking at those three-part tests. So they said there wasn't a uniformity issue there. They did remand it back to CODA for further review on the specific items. When they went to CODA, they kind of did it as all or nothing. They looked at the whole plant. They didn't break down the specific pieces of equipment. So they remanded it back to CODA to rule on the pieces. I can't remember, there were 600 some pieces of equipment individually. So if that happens, I think that's a poor case that could be a big benefit to us in providing assistance to counties how to look at things and what different items are. So if that part's been remanded, the other part was upheld. There's also, we went down and toured the other company that's been very involved is Ash Grove. We went down, cement manufacturing company, we went down and toured their facility. They have a court case pending at CODA, same issues. There's also out of Gray County, there's an issue with the grain elevators. I think the company was appealing like the legs and some of the parts that have historically been called real, and they're saying they should now be personal. And I haven't seen that decision yet, but it was heard in January. I think Court of Tax Appeals, but that's going to go a long ways, I think, in helping us on that type of equipment or type of facilities. The ethanol plant review, Roger had been talking to some different private appraisers who specialize in ethanol plants, and he ended up bringing in a gentleman named Wayne Kubert out of Lincoln, Nebraska for a workshop here a couple weeks ago. Anybody here go to that? I've heard mixed reviews on it. Our intent was originally just to bring in somebody to explain how he looked at these properties from, he's valued them all across the United States. I think he's valued in several of the facilities. And in Kansas, he does it for financial purposes, for lending purposes. Hasn't really done much, hasn't done any government work in Kansas. He does do government work in Nebraska for them. But our intent was just to bring him in and kind of let him explain how he looked at them, what he looked at them on those type of facilities. Again, I've heard mixed reviews. Anybody have any comments on the workshop?
You recommended only 12% of the total property value would be allocated to real estate. So
I heard it was 23. Was it 12?
He thinks 12% of it is only real estate.
I agree.
Do you agree?
Yeah. You agree with him?
Sure, the rest is machinery equipment.
Yeah, that's
That's what the personal property guy says already, in my opinion.
yeah. My understanding, wasn't he talking about the original cost? Was he doing an original cost breakdown, or was he talking about after they're brought in and adapted to the facility?
After it was complete.
Did he? Okay. I understood it being an original cost. Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I mean, our thought is if we can put together some sort of guide where there is a range, percentage range, what's personal, what's personal, real, and if everybody falls into that, there's not too much argument. I don't know if we can get to that or not, but, what about the appraisal side? Did you add anything? You guys get anything out of that? Not so much.
So if you adopt this,
Oh,
I mean, not adopt, but let's just say we go with this significantly reduced percentage allocation, or even get close to that. I mean,
that was just his recommendation. We're not even near going there, but that was just his recommendation. I think a lot of these court cases have to pan out before we change anything, what we currently have in the guide. That was just what he's found in the plans he appraised, and we didn't bring him in to make a recommendation to anyone on what the breakout
does
should be.
that for the bank in the real world for mortgage purposes?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes, you did.
That
So anyway, now you know kind of why we had mixed reviews on that. But, again, it was step one. It was an effort just to get somebody from outside who looks at them from a private side, what they look at, the different type of facilities. I hope there was some benefit there. I mean, he talked about the different construction types, the different facilities. I hope that was a benefit. We did do that. The next big meeting we have is this Thursday. Hopefully some of you will be attending our personal property meeting. Statute's always required us for the guides before completing the guide. We're required by statute to meet with all interested parties, industry side, county appraiser representatives, to discuss the preparation of that guide. We've always done it with the oil and gas guide. We've never done it with the personal property guide until last year we started doing it. This year could be a good meeting. Just some of you signed up, or some of you were told to put on a waiting list. We had like 84. We have a waiting list. They hold 84 people, and we were over that, so we were telling people would let them know. But talking to Roger this morning, he's gonna have a little bit of an abbreviated afternoon session. So if any of you are on the waiting list and are wanting to go ahead and contact us and probably get in that afternoon session to go over the same thing. There will be industry reps there, county appraiser reps there. And, most part will be the M&E discussions and the language in the guide to kind of discuss the recent case out of Montgomery County, get the input from both sides on maybe how we can clarify wording in the guide. Again, I don't know how much we can do until some of these court cases are settled. We're looking at them, we're trying. So anyway, that's Salina, I believe, this Thursday.
Are they gonna discuss the boats?
Yeah, they're going to do the M&E up front, and then probably a lot of the industry folks are going to want to leave, and then we'll kind of start talking about some of the hands-on stuff that for county appraisers, the watercraft, vehicles, that kind of thing. So. The other thing we worked on, we have started kind of trying to group some counties together and have similar properties, and at least open up discussion about how different people are doing them. We also, I think you saw recently, put out a little memo. One of the big things that the industry was concerned with was when they'd fill out an IRB application and list some things as personal, and nothing was ever said about it, and it was processed and the IRB granted. Then when that 10 years expired and they came on the tax roll, suddenly that property is listed as real property. So we just kind of put out some kind of a checklist for counties maybe to look at when they're processing those applications, and address those issues up front and take out the surprise at the end, which I think is just a good common sense procedure. The other thing that's popped up a little bit last year, has popped up already this year. Some people seem to think state appraising some of these complex properties may be the way to go, similar to what they do public utilities. So there's some benefit there. There'd be uniformity. You'd have the same people looking at the same thing. Of course, what scares me is how they're going to fund that. But we kind of gave them our thoughts. One of the things you wouldn't want to group them in with the public utilities because their statutes are so much different. Public utilities, as you know, when we value those, county doesn't have a standing. Company can come in and appeal. County can't. Counties have tried to intervene in some CODA cases on public utilities and have been denied. So I think that'd be something we want to address where probably both sides maybe would have some sort of appeal. The nice thing about the public utilities appeals, they don't have payment under protest. It's all handled within 15 days after the notice is going out. So, for this complex of property, if it was to be state appraised and for the amount of dollars and tax dollars to be talking, I think it'd be a reasonable thing and a benefit to all if it was limited to the spring appeal as opposed to payment under protest. It's just in the discussion stage. I imagine it'll come up again, but it has been discussed. The other projects we have going, there's no questions here. I'll just go right on by this. Good. I'll hit a little bit. You know, this kind of rolls into some of our other projects going on. I know we had this scope of work coming out that replaces the maintenance plan. For my little column for the newsletter, this edition, I just kind of, our top 10 list of questions we've gotten on the scope of work. And, go ahead and share that with you if you guys have it. But, you know, a couple of the big questions we have: scope of work replaces the maintenance plan. It's not in addition to the maintenance plan. When I came on board and started talking to people about what we need to do, Bob, I'll throw Bob under the bus here. Bob Kent thought our maintenance specs needed updated, and I agree. I mean, a lot of them, if you read them, they were referring to the reappraisal they were however many years ago, and they needed updated. When they're doing it, the scope of plan, they led to now use spec requires a scope of work. What if we did a scope of work instead of the maintenance plan? I think Pete scared the heck out of a lot of people when he did their workshops. If any of you were at those workshops, but if any of you go, did Pete scare you? Pete, yeah, he knows he's back inside now, and he was great at what he did, and I putting together that template I think was great. But you know, we've been referred to kind of like an IWL course when you take one of those first courses. The examples they give you in there for the problems are the perfect textbook examples where everything works out just perfectly. Then you get in the real world and you really don't have all those sales and just line up perfectly. It's got a scope of work. I think it's a good pattern to follow. The things he put in his sample scope of work or in our sample scope of work are not the requirements. I mean, when you talk about mailing questionnaires and door hangers, just because that hypothetical county did that doesn't mean you have to do that work. And the requirements are in the maintenance plan, not in that scope of work example, which I think some people upset, concerns some people. But the people we've talked to that have done and gone through it didn't think it was quite as terrible as they originally thought, but I think it'll get better. And let's keep helping. Anybody have any questions on that? Good. Okay. Great elevator guys. One thing we have going, we're still hoping to have this out and ready to go by January 1, 2014. Ray Cook was who was leading this for us. That kind of hurt when we lost him. I told him I hope his new county appraiser job didn't interfere with him getting our grain elevator guide done, but he didn't really reply enough. But again, we were starting on this before that legislative post audit, but it's a pretty good example of some of our outdated guides.
Did you contract it with the same individual?
Yeah, help me with his name. Stuckey?
Out of Oklahoma.
No, he's out of Kansas. No, we did not. No.
The original one was done by that gentleman out of Oklahoma.
No, we're not.
Okay, so who are we using?
We contract with a gentleman that helping us collect some data and doing some sales. I don't know you know the name. I'll draw a blank. I'm terrible.
Did he live in Salina and move to KC?
He lives in, yes. Yeah.
And that would be,
I'm not telling you that.
We all know who he is anyway.
Okay, but he's done, I think he does some work.
Dennis
Bogan.
Bogan. Bogan.
No, that's not it.
That's not him. Well, I'm running out. Okay. That's who Mike has.
But anyway, we contracted him just to do some sales research and all, and then we were hoping between Ray and so Clark was saying we could get the guide updated, but Ray at least did have the worksheet updated and the worksheet we can use, so we're still planning to get that out. We told counties we'd have that out by January 1, so we're going to hold ourselves to that. Subsidized housing guide, we started working on that and kind of working now with KCAA, but I think Brad Eldridge out of Douglas County was taking the lead on that, and I haven't heard anything recently. Anybody on that committee? Okay. Originally, I'd asked Brad to come to KCAA and give an update there on it, and he said there really wasn't much to update, but he thought he could come to KAC, so maybe we'll try to get with him here and update. That's another guy we were wanting to update. Feedlot guy is another one we're working on, collecting sales and getting that updated. Our favorite severed mineral interest, okay.
Guys, gonna be ready by 2014?
Now, the severed mineral interest, I met with Cuyahoga, I met with the Eastern Kansas Association, we met with several legislators, and told them really, the statute's out there, if it's gonna stay out there, we're gonna have to start trying to do it. And we told them that for 2 years, but we told them we're really serious this time. The big fear is for all these counties to go out and get up to date and value these. As soon as we do that and we spend all that money and time, there'll be a legislative change and they'll be exempt or removed. And that's the fear, and that's my fear. So that's why we move very slowly. We have met with them and just kind of told them what we're looking at, and made them familiar with the statute and kind of asked them what their intention was, and if we're going to do something, if we could try to do something this year. So we'll watch the legislative session this year and see what happens. A couple other things, our ORCA, our statewide database. This is a pretty big goal of mine, is a statewide database. With Kansas having the Orion system, one of the few states in the United States with one centralized system, there's no reason we can't have a statewide database. It would be a very good tool for other state agencies. We've gone out and talked to KDOT a little bit and some agencies like that who has a great interest in a statewide database with camera characteristics, especially linked with the mapping program, GIS. We're working on that, and we think we can hopefully come up with funding. I talked a little bit about our electronic fee fund and handle it through there. Right now it's just like we get a request from the legislature on some research. Last year there was a bill that popped up about health centers, I think it was, fitness centers, about exempting all the fitness centers. So they send us and ask us to request how many fitness centers are there in the state of Kansas, and we got to go hit 105 different databases. And, there's got to be a better way. So we're trying to work on pulling things into this ORCA system to have a central database. Right now, when we get open records requests, if it's for 1 county, 2 counties, 5 counties, up 6 counties, we tell them to go hit the counties. If it's for a region, like if it's for the South Central region, if it's for statewide, we'll get it for them. We'll hit our centrally hosted, and then we'll send them to the locally hosted to get that information. We're hoping soon to meet with the counties that are locally hosted to see if we can get a way to pull that data in a timely fashion and have access to it. Use map directive, we talked about this for 2 years, and it goes for the scope of work. Again, the big issue with getting this finalized has been the jurisdictional exceptions and how to address those for Kansas. Getting a point of clarification, use map has always been a requirement for Kansas County appraisers. The original statute referenced the 1992 use map, and if you look at that, it's about this wide, and if you look at the current use map, it's about this wide. So there's going to be changes, but nobody can convince me the original intent of the legislature was that we stick with 1992 use map indefinitely. I think we probably should have been updating this before now, and that's our goal, is to get current. We'd probably always be 2 years in the rears just because of the way your plan works and you're working, now for the following year. You wouldn't have that. Right now you wouldn't have 2014 use map available, so we'll probably always be maybe 2 years in the rears, but at least that'd be better than being 22. So, county appraiser, I'll send out any draft and copies of draft or before it even goes to an open meeting for discussion. Our hang-up has been the jurisdictional exceptions, and the other hang-up's been the competency rule, and concern with that, and how to best word that, and how to deal with these special use properties. As county appraiser, you got to value them. You don't have a choice. That's your job. So what do you do if you go tell your county commissioner, I don't think I'm competent to value this, we need some funds to hire somebody, and they say no? How do you cover yourself under use map? One of the things we're doing along with that, we talked about on the RMA regs is adding one more requirement for this USPAP seminar, and that's what we're developing. Core project is something we've been working on a couple of years, and we finally got back on the radar screen. It's solar. It's out of Lawrence, and we're working with them. KCC and some others already have electronic filing for all their wells, producing wells. We're trying to add a leg to where you do electronic filing for local producing wells. It's just in the development stage, but at least it's back on the radar. And it'd be a nice tool then where you can compare it to KCC data. So all these state agencies would be in the same spot, maps where they're at. So we're back on the radar and going forward with that. This tax rate memo last fall that got a request from several counties to put out a clarification memo on tax reps representing their taxpayers at hearings. If you remember, which is last fall, there's I think it's pronounced Lyra or Wilra case out of Johnson County where CODA I don't remember how long the order was, but a very lengthy order denying a taxpayer appeal there because the tax rep filed the appeal instead of the taxpayer. And some counties were taking that a step farther and saying even at the informal level and the payment under protest level, tax rep could not file the appeal, and they denied it. They made that protest at a CODA hearing recently, and we just got an order here about a few weeks ago where CODA ruled for the local levels 1448 and 2005 on the informals and the payment under protest. And as long as the tax rep has a signed representation form, they can file the appeal at the county level.
Have you had anybody tell you what some of the attorneys and the tax reps are now doing when we go to small claims hearing?
No.
This objection was brought up when I had a hearing with Mr. Staff and Kenton on some oil and gas cases a few weeks ago. They objected to me presenting the county's end data because I was not represented by an attorney, which they feel needs to be done like CODA says it needs to be done.
That's small claims.
At small claims.
I have that.
They said you don't have the right, you're practicing law. That was their argument.
And
She said no, the statutes allow me to do it, but he raised the objection every single time, and I think that's not going to end up going to appeal to CODA.
who was their representative?
Brad Savage.
No, I hadn't heard that. I think it's covered by statute.
Well, I do too, but he's evidently going to make a issue of it. Saying that the counties now have to have legal representation at small claims.
And
I don't think that the property owners have to have legal representation at the CODA level, or at the small claims level.
I was at small claims, and you heard, because you were reading the next hearing, and the taxpayer didn't have an attorney, I didn't have an attorney, but he asked me questions, so I in turn went to ask him a question, and was told by the,
well, maybe we can work with them and get some clarification on that.
Well, then I
I
had a
won the
hearing.
small claims though, so, but we're going on to.
I know that, then it goes back to that Lyra corridor, they really, part of that too was tax rep presenting, so
I
they
think
were doing
that
legal
answer-
type work.
Doesn't that answer it there though? I mean,
Well, but I had a hearing after Jamie and Carl let me ask taxpayer questions, so there was no consistency there.
Well, we had a stipulation that CODA turned down because it was a corporation, which I knew who the owner, there's only one guy basically, that's the LLC. And they turned down a stipulation because he had signed it, because he had to have an attorney enter an entry of appearance, and an attorney had to sign for it since it was a corporation.
small.
For CODA, for stipulation,
CODA?
for stipulation.
Yeah, now that I can.
Would never.
And in this corridor,
Come
they
across that
distinguish
before.
between practicing law and non-attorney practicing law and just filing the appeal. I mean, what they're ruling on here is just a tax rep, as long as they have a rep form signed, they can file the appeal to the informals. Some counties are turning them down and making them go have the taxpayer file the appeal. But, you know, most counties informals do not even have a written appeal form. So they're drawing, they're not addressing the practicing law, non-attorney practicing law. They are more strict on that now than they have been, but I hadn't heard that in small claims. Well, Coda, is anybody familiar with the new Coda Judge?
No.
I was thinking he was from down around here, am I wrong?
What's his name?
You know how I am on names.
Sam Schultz.
Say that again.
Yes, that's it.
Ron Mason?
I think that's right.
Ron Mason is the,
You know,
We're on tape, Rick.
oh, good! That would really be nice.
I'm not familiar with him at all.
That's horrible.
So he's from Kingman? I thought it,
That's horrible.
well, who is he?
He's a local attorney that, or turned out. He's just a local attorney that couldn't make it private practice.
yeah, I'm not
That
familiar.
shop.
I haven't met him yet, but I just wonder if anybody worked, I thought he was from Century.
Praise.
Yeah, I thought he was from Century. Last thing I wanted to just hit on and clarify is, our director's update. Statute says once every 2 years, we're required the county assessors of the state to meet with the director at the state capitol on the day designated. We're not requiring you to come to the state capitol. We are going back to holding our director's updates. There's been some confusion on the KAC meeting we have, and I think we can get away from calling that a director's update at KAC. But to be clear, the requirement is once in 2 years. You know, my thought was we would start holding some updates at already regularly scheduled conferences like KCAA and KAC, thinking that'd be an advantage for those who were going anyway and already there. They wouldn't have to miss work again and an additional expense or whatever to go. So that was my intent. You're not required to go to KAC and go to director's update. The requirement is to make one of these 4 sessions once every 2 years. And if it works out better, turns out it works out better for us just to have a separate update somewhere once a year, separate of these conferences, we can do that. It's kind of backfired on us a bit. My intent was, like I said, to make them available and for people who are already there. And last year we had people showing up for the update who hadn't registered, and it caused quite an uproar. So this year for KAC, they are requiring a 1-day registration if you're going to come. Again, love to have you there, but it's not a requirement to be at this KAC. It is here this year, I believe. You know, our goal is kind of on the updates at KAC. I think we're going to try to more a broader overview, probably talk more about value trends throughout the state, ratio results, that kind of thing. Some things similar to that we presented to county commissioners and some of the other groups, some things that might interest them. And then at KAC is more just an appraiser-specific, hands-on, technical kind of things that relate to you. So that's kind of our plans for the 2 updates. If you want to you can make it to either one of them. Again, you know, from the counties, if your opinion, it would work better to hold separate directors' updates. We're sure willing to consider that as well. I'm not sure how they used to do them in the past. I think they used to have separate updates and kind of 1-day conferences, more workshops and that kind of thing. Do you pay to go to KAC? Is there a registration fee for that as well? So maybe we'll look at that. But anyway, for the upcoming KAC, I'd have you there, but again, it's not a requirement. October 29th, the 2 sessions are going to be identical sessions. You can make it either 1 hour-and-a-half sessions. Really, those are the things I wanted to talk on today, and then also just kind of want to turn it back to you guys and see what's going on, if there's anything I can answer or try to answer for you, anything to go back and look into. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I thank you for your time.
Okay, is there